Greetings and welcome to another edition of Alusine Multicultural Family Consulting. And this is taken from a pastoral community counseling perspective as well as a communication perspective. It's always a pleasure to be here, to relate to you, to talk about issues and ways we can communicate effectively in our common humanity. So I'm always happy to be here to share my thoughts, my sentiments, my ideas about ways we can relate and ways we can understand one another. That's primarily my goal. For today's session, I have a topic which is very much experiential in the sense that everybody does it. And that topic is nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is basically how we communicate without the use of words. Nonverbal communication is very much important to understand because 70 to 80% of a message's meaning is communicated non-verbally. So non-verbal communication is when we communicate without the use of words. It is based on non-verbal communication that there is the idea that we cannot not communicate. In other words, all communication is purposeful. Whether you say something or not, you are communicating non-verbally. So non-verbal communication teaches us that all communication is purposeful. We cannot not communicate. For instance, let's look at these pictures here. Here I see a lady, her gesture, she has a hand on top. She's carrying maybe food, water, a high behavior, her facial expressions, all convey those messages. And here I see the facial expression of a musician, It shows seriousness. It shows carefulness. It shows dedication to task. And she has her gestures. So all of those are examples of non-verbal communication. Sometimes much of a message's meaning is conveyed non-verbally. Now, let's look at the types of non-verbal communication. The first type of non-verbal communication is what's called oculesics, eye behavior. The eyes communicate messages. There are many functions of eye communication. Sometimes eye behavior signals the relationship you have. Sometimes eye behavior is used to solicit feedback. Sometimes eye behavior is used to signal the nature of the relationship you have. Eye communication oculesics is cultural. In some cultures, you don't look at an elder in the eyes. In the U.S. culture and in Western traditions, eye behavior is necessary. It shows confidence. If you don't look at a person, they may think you are lying, not telling the truth, or you are deceitful. So eye communication is one type of nonverbal communication. Another type of nonverbal communication is proxemics. Proxemics has to do with the use of space and distance. Sometimes we have our intimate space, 0 to 18 inches. Sometimes we have our personal distance, our social distance, our public distance. Space is related to territoriality. People protect their territory or their use of space. So the use of space and distance is another type of nonverbal. Another type of nonverbal is facial expression. There are many variations in types of nonverbal communication, but the most universal type is facial expression. The face is rich in meaning. It conveys our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. So regardless of type of culture, people associate facial expression when we communicate non-verbally. Another type of non-verbal communication is haptics, the use of touch. The use of touch. There are several uses of touch. There is intimate touch, there is social polite touch, there is professional touch, and there is just casual touch. So touch varies from culture to culture. In some cultures, people express affection through the use of touch. Another type of non-verbal is the use of time, which is called chronomics. Chronomics is the use of time. Time is expressed in several ways. Time is expressed in seconds, in minutes, in hours, in days, in years, centuries. Cultures vary in the uses of time. In some cultures, time doesn't have a beginning or an end. You say come at 2, the person comes at 5, and they don't think they've offended you. In Western traditions, time is valuable. People get paid by the hour. You take credit hours. There are sayings, time is money. So time is another type of nonverbal. Another type of nonverbal is environmental. The weather, the changes in the ecology are all nonverbal. In cities, you see bridges, roads, cars, construction, technology. All of those are ways we communicate non-verbally. So those are some of the types of non-verbal. Eye contact, gestures, facial expression, tone of voice, and the use of space, the use of time. All of those are ways we communicate messages non-verbally. What are the functions of non-verbal communication? Non-verbal messages serve several functions. The most important of them is that we cannot not communicate. All communication is purposeful. Whether you say something or not, you are communicating. Your eye behavior, your tone of voice, your use of space, your use of time. The nonverbal has another function of accenting the verbal. Sometimes your tone of voice and what you say, it accents, it builds the meaning you convey. Another function of nonverbal is that it substitutes the verbal. In other words, some messages, you don't have to say anything. A wave, eye behavior, the use of space, all convey messages. In some cases, the nonverbal complements the verbal. If I'm saying goodbye and I wave, that's a way my nonverbal is complementing the verbal. The nonverbal in some cases contradicts the verbal. And when the nonverbal contradicts the language or what we say, people believe the nonverbal. So there are many ways to look at what happens when we communicate without the use of words. It's experiential in the sense that we cannot not communicate. And knowing the types of nonverbal, eye contact, facial expression, gestures, the use of space, the use of time, the use of touch, and the variations they have across cultures is important. So the nonverbal serves many functions. It accents, it substitutes, it contradicts in some cases. So we cannot not communicate. That's my message for today. I hope these things are ways we experience, day by day, as we communicate in families, in friendships, in cultures, in the workplace. Sometimes the nonverbal may contradict the verbal. That's why it's good to verify. You say you are happy with me, but how come you don't call me? That's an example of contradiction. Or you say you are happy, how come you are crying? Another example of contradiction. So observing and see what works for you as we communicate and relate messages are some of the thoughts I want to share with you today. Thank you for your time, and as always, may God bless.